My name is Speranza, Vincent J, and I was born in New York City, 1925. You don't have to do the math, I'm 92. And I am here with my granddaughter, Emily Yeager, who takes good care of me on these trips. And I'm very happy to be talking to people like you because the message today is, you know, we got to pay more attention to what's going on in the world so that we don't have to repeat World War II. Now, it's important for a person to know a little bit about your childhood because that it affects how you turn out as a man. And I grew up during the Depression. Times were tough, but my parents, both immigrants, came to this country, literally with nothing, and put together a family of 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls. My father believed in equal gender deployment. And we grew up in a disciplined family. My mother had a wooden spoon about that long, and ostensibly to stir the spaghetti pots, but it was a dual-purpose instrument. When we sat down at the table to eat, Pop sat at the end, the 4 boys, the 4 girls. Mom didn't sit over there. She sat here in the middle, and with that spoon, she had a reach at each corner of the table. We learned table manners very early in our lives. I mention that because I believe that those of us that had discipline before we got into the Army made it easy for us to accept Army discipline and the importance of the discipline in your future behavior when you get into combat. In 1941, it was a Sunday, December the 7th, I was a 16-year-old kid on a bicycle, Sunday, riding to the store. And when I got to the store, everybody was quiet. Nobody was saying anything. And finally I said, hey. They said, shut up. The President of the United States is on the radio. It seems like the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor. You know, where the hell is Pearl Harbor was the first thing. And that they destroyed the American Navy. Folks, we were not concerned or scared. We were outraged. We said, what the hell did we do to you, little... Well, you attacked you didn't even declare war the way they do in the old days. You sneaked up on us, you sank our battleships and so on. All we wanted to do was get in there and do something about it. Those of us that had a little hair here on our face, we went down to recruiting and we said, we're 18, we want to join the Army. Recruiting sergeant said, go home, kid, come back when you're really 18. And he turned us away, and we were told we had to have a birth certificate and so on. So we had to stay another 2 years in the high school while the war was raging all around us because they would not let us in until we were 18. In the meantime, the Japanese are taking all of Asia. They're almost down to Australia. The Germans had taken all of Europe. They had Ukraine and almost to Moscow. And we were just deathly afraid that we were not going to be able to get in there in time to do something about it. Finally, when I turned 18, you get a letter from the government which says, greetings from the President of the United States. You coming or shall we come get you? No, they said go register for the draft. But you could not volunteer for anything. It was part of a quota system. When your section of the city had its quota called for, that's when you get in. I had to wait. I was 18 in March, but I had to wait until October before they finally took me into the service. Now, the night before you leave for the service, you know, the whole family gathers, 30 people or so, and all your uncles start giving you advice. Now, Vince, don't forget, when you get into the service, whatever you do, don't go into the infantry. We said, why the hell not? If you want to get into the fight, that's where the fighting is. They said, no, the infantry is this and that. Yeah, so you say, yeah. But the day comes And my father says to the family, listen, all of you say goodbye to Vinny here. I will take him to the train station alone. The train station was within walking distance. And that morning, you know, your mother's crying, the girls are all crying, the boys are trying not to, and so on, you hug them all. And we start for the train station. All the way to the train station, my father didn't say a word to me. I kept looking at him, nothing. We get to the train station, he still hadn't said anything. The train comes in, he still hadn't said anything. Just before I got on the train, for the first time I saw tears in my father's eyes, and he said, non fa mai una cosa mi può calare la testa, which means, son, just don't do anything to make me hang my head in shame. And I barely got out, I won't pop. When people ask what was my thinking, what was going on with the first combat and so on and so on, that's what came into my head. My father saying, just don't do anything to shame the family. And I said, I won't. And I didn't. The train takes us to Fort Shanks, New York, where you're given a battery of tests. And the tests, an officer sits down with you, and he goes over your tests and starts saying, Speranza, you did 90 in mechanical aptitude. You like the tanks? Yeah. And you did 90 in the signal corps. You like the radios? Yeah. He goes through a whole bunch of stuff that, boy, man, are you qualified for this? Then he takes a big stamp, infantry, which is what we wanted anyway. And they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia. Fort Benning, the infantry school, a big sergeant comes out, and he says, my name is Mastorelli, and I got 19 weeks to turn you students into soldiers. He said, and believe me, I'm going to do it. You know, I should apologize to the ladies. Now, when I tell these stories, I'm reliving them, and you relive them in the language of the day. And I apologize if I slip. I try not to. And he kept his promise, boy. In that 19 weeks, whew, he ran us through everything. And we thought, at the end of the 19 weeks, all right, now we're good soldiers. We're going to get into the fight right now. You got to come back for 4 more weeks of advanced infantry training. And you go back for 4 more weeks of advanced infantry training. And, okay, now, right? No, 2 more weeks of heavy weapons training and so on. We kept saying, when the hell are we going to get into the fight? Finally, they said, okay, you're ready now, but you got to be sent to a line outfit, a regular infantry outfit, and then they will go into the fight. They sent me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to the 87th Infantry Division, and they said, now, right, we're going to get into the fight. Maneuvers in Tennessee, jungle training in Florida. Well, when the hell are we going to get into the fight? One morning, they took us out and said, going to be a demonstration today. They took us out to a big field. We said, what kind of demonstration? Shut up and sit down. We sit down, and out of the sky, 3 C-47s come flying out. And we see the doors open, and these guys throwing themselves out of the airplane with a little white piece of silk come down, and they come floating down. You know, paratroopers were brand new in World War II. We were enthralled. Look at these guys. And then they ran off the field. They lined up in front of us. And the lieutenant says, this is the United States Parachute Corps, and we're looking for a few good men. You have to have had your basic infantry, your advanced infantry, and so on. Who wants to volunteer? And we went, but throw yourself out of an airplane? He said, and there's $50 extra on jump pay. Back to Fort Benning, Georgia, and jump training, absolutely magnificent. 5 weeks of training before you make your first parachute jumps, and I'm telling you, they had built us into, you know, you could do 100 push-ups on one hand before you got finished. And they had built our legs and all kinds of parachute training and so on. The day comes when actually you're going to make your jump, but before that, the course takes you to the parachute school, parachute packing, and they tell you that you're going to jump in the parachute that you pack. You never saw a more attentive class in your whole life. The worst of it was, you pack your chute on Friday, the jump is not till Monday, and you got all weekend to go, did I do that thing right? Did I make the stream course and so on? But the parachute itself was just a magnificent thing. You never get over it. It's the most beautiful experience there is. You throw yourself out of that airplane, the thing opens, you go silent down and so on. 4 months ago, I made another parachute jump at Fort Bragg with the Golden Knights. When your parachute training is over, hey, no more fooling around now. Right to Fort Shanks, New York again, and ready to go overseas. During that, the time that we were at Fort Benning, my boys, every once in a while the Army would give you what they call spaghetti. And I used to complain and holler and say, hey, you call this spaghetti? This is just, I said, if we ever get anywhere near New York, I'll take you to my house and let you taste some real spaghetti. So when we got to Camp Shanks, ready to go overseas, the guy said, all right, Speranza, what about all that baloney about you're going to take us for real spaghetti? I said, okay, let me call my mother. I called my mother and told her I had that one day we were going to come home. I was going to come home, and she thought that was great. And I said, Ma, I used to tell these guys, I'm going to let them taste real spaghetti. Can I bring a couple of the guys with me? Oh, sure, she said. How many? I said, 18. She said, 18. That's one stick, the squad I'm in. She said, 18. How much time do I have? I said, oh, we won't be there for 3 or 4 hours. She said, oh, plenty, bring them. My 4 sisters went bananas, all these young guys who coming to the house. They had a dinner set up you wouldn't believe. And my mother was worried about the drinking age at that time was 21. Should we do the wine with the spaghetti? And I said, hey, listen, we're going to fight for the country, yeah, do the wine. We then put on a demonstration jump out the window of the house, and the neighbors thought, what in the world was going on? Seeing the guys jumping all out of my mother's window. We had a great time, and just before I was ready to leave, my mother looked at everybody. She said, when was the last time you wrote your mother a letter? She said, don't move anybody. She goes upstairs, gets a bunch of paper and pencil, so on. Make everybody write a letter. And you too. She said, okay. We wrote letters and so on. One of the saddest moments of my life was that after the war, my mother was saying, you remember, Vinny, all those nice boys you brought home? How many of them came home with you? And you know what I had to say? I was the only one of that 18 bunch that made it back after the war. Okay, we got right on the Queen Mary, the troop ship, to England. And we stationed there for a few months, had a few adventures in there. It's all in the book. And then we got flown to France. Thank you. We got flown to France, excuse me. And the 101st Airborne Division had just come out of a disastrous battle in Holland Market Garden. The division got slaughtered, went in with 12,000, came out with 9,000, and most of their equipment, their food supply, and what the division necessary for combat stayed in Holland. They barely escaped back into France. Now, when you're a replacement, until you prove yourself in combat, you are nothing. Nobody talks to you. Nobody says anything. We expected it. They said, a veteran who just saw his buddy get slaughtered, and then you're going to take his place. And they look at you, and I say, yeah. But the outfit was supposed to get 3 months, 90 days of resupply, equipment, food, weapons. I was a machine gunner without a machine gun. And a lot of guys didn't have helmets or gas masks or anything. And so the division is supposed to be picking up all this stuff. What nobody knew, neither British intelligence or American intelligence, is the Germans had saved up 25 divisions. There's 18,000 men in each division. And they had planned to come from Germany, Belgium, the port of Antwerp here in Belgium. Their idea was to come from Germany, go through the Ardennes, take the port of Antwerp. Antwerp was our port of entry. All our food, gasoline, supplies, and equipment was there. And so they would have had all the food and gasoline they needed, depriving us of them. And it would have divided the British armies and British and Canadian armies in the north from the American armies in the south. It would have changed the war had they done it. The problem for them was to get to Antwerp, there was a little town here called Bastogne. Bastogne had 5 roads. It was a communication hub, 2 railroads going through it, and so on. It was a small village. But the territory in the Ardennes there was very bad for tanks out there. They had to stay on the roads. To stay on the roads, they had to go through Bastogne. And to get to Antwerp, they had to take Bastogne. Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne Division up there and said, hold it. We, of course, know nothing about this. The barracks lights goes on. First sergeant comes up. This is December 17th. All right. Drop your, and grab your socks. We're going up front. We said, Sergeant, you're crazy. The ground is frozen. We'll all break our legs. He said, no, you're not going to jump. You're going up in trucks. All I could think of was all that parachute training, all that airborne training, and I'm going into my first combat on a truck. But at any rate, we then started howling, Sarge, I don't have a machine gun. I don't have a helmet. I don't have a rifle. I don't have it. And none of us had winter clothes. We were supposed to get winter clothes. All we had was the summer jacket and the cotton pants. We didn't get any galoshes, anything. Go up the way you are. They had smashed through 4 American divisions, the 4th, the 28th, the 128th, and the 9th Armored, and just pulverized them. They were destroyed as fighting units. The stragglers had to go through Bastogne as they were sent to the rear. When we got to Bastogne, everybody said, Bastogne, where is that? Yeah, beats the hell out of me, I don't know. And the lieutenant says, all right, 5 yards apart, and watch out for snipers. I had a trench knife in my boot. I said, Lieutenant, what the hell am I supposed to do with it? He said, stop bitching, Speranza. He pulls out his .45, shows me the bottom of it. It's empty. He's going into combat with an empty .45. And a lot of the other guys didn't have rifles, didn't have ammunition, didn't have anything. What saved us was when the stragglers were going through Bastogne in the other direction, and we were going up, we said, hey, buddy, look, you don't need this, right? We took the rifle right off his shoulder. You're going back, right? We took the grenades out of his pocket. I found a guy with a nice light machine gun. I said, you know, this looks heavy for you, pal. Let me help you carry it. Most of us, for the first fight, at least had a weapon. I had a machine gun with 2 belts of ammunition, and I knew damn well that 2 belts of ammunition goes the first 5 minutes of any fight. I also took an M1, carrying both, the gun and an M1. But we got sent to an area one day before the Germans hit, and just enough time to set up a defensive position. And here's what we were now. Here's what the situation is. There's one under-strength American airborne division in there, under-equipped, no winter clothes, very little food and ammunition and so on. Elements of the 10th Armored Division with 73 tanks. The Germans had over 1,000. And part of a 705 tank destroyer battalion, which they had, I don't know how many weapons and so on, but they did have the latest anti-tank guns. And 25 German divisions are coming. All right, dig a hole. The ground is frozen. You hit it with a shovel, and it bounces back in your face, and you whack at it and whack at it and whack at it. And finally, you get a hole dug. You get past the frozen part. Then there's all the tree roots, and it took us 4 hours to dig a stinking hole in the ground, and we're dying. We had no food and no water since we got off the trucks. We're laying on the bottom of the floor. We're moving out. No, Jesus. We got to dig in someplace else. We move to the other, start digging again, pounding and pounding. You know, machine gunners have to dig a two-man foxhole. We've finally got an excavation dug there. I don't know how deep it was. We laid down there completely exhausted. We're moving out. The last place we went, we just scraped the snow on the side and laid down on the ground. The hell with it. We were completely exhausted. There was nothing you could do. That morning, now, you know, I'm asked again and again, and I tried to describe it in the book. What were your feelings when you know? I don't know. Hot, cold, indifferent, scared, not scared, tough. But the fog was all the way down to the ground. The fog starts to lift, and as soon as it got high enough for you to be able to see through this field, all hell breaks loose. Artillery, mortars, and worst of all, tanks with their 88s firing directly, coming up both sides of the road, and the German infantry starts up the field. They were being very bold, attacking across a sort of open field, but they were flushed with victory with the 4 divisions they had just smashed, and they thought this was going to be another smash. They didn't know it was the 101st Airborne Division. But at any rate, as they're coming across the snow, the ground sloped down about 400 yards and then up 400, and we had set the machine gun sights for 400 yards. The lieutenant told us to set it at 400 yards. And we're waiting, and as they come up, what they didn't know, and we didn't know either, that the snow covered a whole bunch of barbed wire fences. Not a single fence, you know, the pens like that the farmers do in their meadows. And the German infantry comes up, and all of a sudden, they bang into the fences. Well, they stop, and we go into the lieutenant says, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. The second wave of German infantry comes up. Now, the tanks keep coming. The second wave comes up, and now you've got men trying to help each other off the fences and so on and so on. No, not yet, not yet, not yet. God damn it, not yet. The third wave comes up. Now you've got knots of men all over in the field there and so on, and the lieutenant says, now. And man, we opened up, and, you know, it's not nice to say, but it was machine gunner's delight. We slaughtered them. The snow turned red. They never got off the fences. The place was littered, and they had to turn around and go back. The tanks now are on top of us. They're firing point blank at the foxholes. When you hit a foxhole with an 88 shell, you know, the guy disappears. His rifle maybe goes floating around in the air. And the joy of us being able to slow and stop them changed a little bit when you look around. And I don't know how the hell I didn't get hit, but there are dead American bodies all over the place too, from their artillery and tank fire. But that victory, whatever you want to call it, that in the first battle, convinced them that this was not going to be an easy push like they went through the other 4 divisions. And so they never tried a frontal attack like that again. They backed up, and then the second day, they surrounded us. They left 8 divisions to take the town, and when they surrounded us, they captured the field hospital. All the beds, blankets, medical equipment, everything that you needed for taking care of the wounded had been captured by the Germans, including the medical personnel. They shot up some of the medical personnel, the doctors. We only had 1 doctor during that whole battle in Bastogne, and we had next to nothing in the way of morphine and the stuff that they had. They collected the little packets that each man was, and those of us that had extra medications of any kind, they collected to take to the wounded. There was no place to put the wounded now that they had captured everything except the floor of the church. The church had stone walls are still standing. The church and the seminary across the street were the only two buildings that still had walls enough to form some kind of shelter, and the rest of the town had been bombed and shelled to pieces. So all these guys are taken back and just thrown on the floor of the church. In my book, well, the second day, my friend had gotten hit in both legs, and they took him back to the church, threw him on the floor of the church. And my sergeant sent me back to get batteries for the radio or something, and while I was back there, I went to look for my friend. His name was Joe Willis. I went into the church, and you know, what a pitiful sight. These guys with no medical attention, some of them still bleeding, some of them with pieces. It was, but I walked in with like a, hey boys, you know, a morale builder. How you doing? And so on. I said, Joe, how you doing? He said, and then I got a couple of pieces of shrapnel in the leg. He said, I'll be out of here tomorrow. I said, no kidding. He said, yeah. He said, I'll be out of here tomorrow. Don't worry about it. I said, well, you know, he was my assistant machine gunner. I said, Joe, Jesus, come on, yeah, I need you. You're back. Listen, I got to go. Anything I can do for you before I leave? He said, yeah, go find me something to drink. I said, Joe, where the hell am I going to find you something to drink? We're surrounded and cut off. There's no supplies, anything coming in here. He said, go look in the taverns. Joe, the taverns are all bombed and stuff. He said, go look anyway. You might get lucky. Now, it's snowing. The temperature is 0. And it never went above 0 the whole 6 days of the first part of that fight. 10 below, 12 below, 18 below. And we only had those summer clothes. And I go into one of the taverns. Artillery is coming in, and there was nothing, all broken glass, broken furniture, and so on. And I stepped out, and I'm dodging one doorway to the other because the shells are landing. The second tavern I went into still had a bar, and when I pulled the handle, beer came out. I said, ooh. I looked around for a bottle, a jar, something. There was nothing. I took off my helmet. The same helmet you use in a foxhole, you know. I swished a little snow in it. I went back and I filled it up with beer. Go back to the church. I said, hey, Joe, I got some beer. He said, no shit. He sits up, and I'm feeding him beer from the helmet. Hey, give me some of that. Hey, give me some of that. Hey, give me some of that. I was like an old mother cow there feeding all these guys beer. I ran out. Joe says, go get some more. Jesus Christ, Joe, go get some more. I go down to the tavern, fill up the helmet with beer. This time I had spilled half of it on the way back because I was dodging artillery. When I got back to the church this time, standing in the doorway like this, is the surgeon, the Major Walkman. You know, I'm a private soldier. He says, what the hell do you think you're doing, soldier? I said, sir, bringing aid and comfort to the wounded. He said, you stupid jackass, don't you know I got chest cases and stomach cases in there? You give him beer, you'll kill him? Get out of here before I have you shot. Yes, sir, and put that helmet on. I was not only freezing, now I was wet and freezing, but I ran like hell back to my foxhole before he changed his mind. An incident that happened during the war, right? No. 65 years later, when I went back to visit the battlefields for the first time, you know, when I got home from the war, I said, hey, I'm not going to be one of these guys that has nightmares and bad dreams and beat your wife up and so on and so on. I'm going to take all that stuff about cutting people in half with a machine gun and so on, put it back here and lock the door, and lock the door and forget about it, whole new life. I'm going to find a nice woman, get married, have kids. That's exactly what I did. I did not attend any reunions. I didn't attend any. I didn't even know the celebrations that were going on all over. But on 2009, my wife had just been taken away from me and put permanently in a nursing home. I was 85 years old, no man sitting around waiting to die. And all of a sudden, by accident, I meet this woman who says, oh, you were in Bastogne? She was from Bastogne. I said, yeah, and she said, and you have not been back? I said, no. She said, Monsieur, you must go back to Bastogne. She said, the people of Bastogne have never forgotten the 101st Airborne Division. She said, there are monuments to you all over town. There are people, they have celebrations every year. All the men and women in the town put on American uniforms with a Screaming Eagle patch, and they reenact the battles, and she said, they will honor you. She said, in fact, if you go to Bastogne and you wear a little pin that says 101st Airborne Division, you don't buy a drink or a meal the whole time you're there. I said, that sounds pretty good. I went home and told the family, I think I'll go back to Bastogne. Pop, you crazy, you're 85. What are you going to do, run around Europe? I said, well, one of you come with me. And my daughter, her mother, agreed to come. Now, when we went back to Bastogne, I had no game plan. I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything. All I was going to do was rent a taxi and go out to the outlying parts, see if I could recognize anything. By accident, the first morning that we were there, we were going to the bank to change our money into euros. And my daughter sees a mannequin in a window with a 101st paratrooper outfit. And she says, Pop, look. And I said, yeah, well. Now, my life since that has been one coincidence after another. One little thing happens which triggers this, which triggers that, and my whole life changed. We went in, and I later found out a Dutch paratrooper officer, young guy, 40, 50 years old, something like that. And he says, can I help you? I said, no, I'm just looking. I was here during the war. He said, you were here during the war? I said, yeah. He comes running around the thing there. I thought he was going to attack me. I went to defense mode. He picked me up off the run. Sir, he said, we are so happy to see you. Where have you been? There's so few of you left. We want to honor you. We want to. And I said, he said, listen, he said, who were you with? I said, H Company, 501 Regiment. Sir, he said, we studied the war. All the way through, we knew where everybody was, where the Germans were, I will show you where H Company was dug in on both sides of the road, and where you did your fighting. I said, really? That's great. So my daughter and I get in the car with him and Johnny Bone, a Belgian tank commander, and he drives us out of town. I see the church. I said, hey, he said, yeah, on the way back. But he takes us out to this place, a little place called Mont. And he says, now, H Company was dug in here, and here, and here, and here, and here. Then he looks at me like this, and he says, and that was your foxhole. I said, come on. How the hell do you know that was my foxhole? He said, because your company commander, Captain Stanley, when he turned in his after-action reports, he had a diagram where he put them in. You were the only machine gunner in the 3rd platoon, right? Yeah. MG. Now, folks, you got to picture this. You're 85 years old, and somebody is telling you you're standing where 72 years ago you were a 19-year-old kid with a machine gun waiting for the first German attack. I turned all the noise, all the artillery, everything that I had been hiding back here, smacked me right in the face. I could almost hear the artillery and the tanks and fire and so on, and, I sort of broke down. My daughter pulls me aside and said, Marco, listen, my father's seen enough. We'll come back tomorrow, okay? And he said, yeah. On the way back to town, I offered to take them to lunch, the two guys. And they said, yeah. So we go to the hotel and for lunch. I ordered 3 bottles of wine. I said, I'm going to change the mood here. I don't like the way I feel. So now you put 3 soldiers and 3 bottles of wine together, and we start getting a little noisy and loud, and everybody's looking. We're yelling and slapping each other on the back. We embarrassed the hell out of my daughter. And they start telling stories. So Johnny Boner tells about Belgian tanks. Marco tells about fighting in Afghanistan. And when it came my turn, I told them this beer story. While I'm telling the story, they're going like this. You were the guy who brought the beer in the helmet to... I said, yeah. You went to the church, the wounded guys? I said, yeah. He looks me in the eye like this and says, man, he says, don't you know you're famous in Europe? I said, what the hell are you talking about? He says, waiter, come here. Bring us 4 bottles of airborne beer. The waiter comes back with 4 bottles of beer and 4 little ceramic bowls in the shape of a helmet that they serve it in. And the label on the bottle of beer shows a paratrooper with a helmet full of beer going like this. He said, nobody thought that was a true story. Everybody thought that was a baloney story, the wartime exaggeration, this and that. He said, but a Belgian brewer just decided, let's honor this mythical GI who was supposed to have brought beer to the wounded. And he started producing airborne beer. He said, I can't believe it. Nobody thought it was true, and yet here's the man who did it right in front of us now. I said, yeah, maybe I ought to get a cut on the beer too, right? But Marco, after that, introduced us to so much, and it's in the book. I don't have time for it today, but a lot of things that happened after that. But back to the war. The third day, we're getting low on food and ammunition, and where the hell is our Air Force? The Germans were bombing us every night. Artillery coming in all the time. We're supposed to have the finest Air Force in the world. Where the hell are they? The 4th night, more bombings, more artillery. Now ammunition's getting real low. We later found out that the artillery was down to 2 shells per gun per day. I only had, we used to get 1 clip. I'd get 2 clips of ammo for the machine gun. And the sergeants used to go around collecting who's got a little more to divide it up every night. And it got colder, and it looked bad. And finally, on the 23rd, the sun came out. We found out later that the reason the Air Force wasn't there is that the weather in England was impossible. They couldn't get off the ground. But on the 23rd, the sun came out. And we're standing there. We can't believe that we can see a shadow. And all of a sudden, out of the sky, 6 P-47 fighter bombers. I see them now. The nacelles were painted red and yellow and blue and red and yellow and blue. They came out, and they dove and bombed and strafed all around us. And they silenced the German artillery. And at the end, they lined up, and they flew directly overhead, and we waggled their wings. What a moment. What a moment for us. Because right after that, 100 and something C-47s came out and dropped supplies. Food, ammunition, and gasoline, medicine. So we're waiting now for them to bring us overcoats, gloves. You know what it's like to fight in zero weather with no gloves? Try to get one hand in your pocket and so on. No clothing, everything else, but no clothing. We bless them when they come in, we curse them when they've been out. We said, what the hell's the matter with you people? What kind of supply officer doesn't realize, maybe the guys in the back, they can do okay, But the infantrymen in the front foxholes, you've got to have both your hands to fire a weapon in your head. At any rate, they didn't send any, but the ammunition and the food and so on were welcome. It gave us a renewed hope that we were going to be able to do something. Little incidents took place during the time. How's my time?
You're about done.
I'm still okay?
Well, you're about done.
It is 10 minutes?
It's been 10 minutes, 10 minutes ago.
Well, let me tell you about the luckiest cow in Bastogne. Behind our lines, all night you had to do this and keep your feet, or you're frozen stiff. We found guys frozen stiff all night. The sergeants would come around sometime. There was a barn back a little ways, and they'd pick a few guys at a time, take them back to the barn. The barn wasn't much warmer than that, but it was a little warmer place to warm up, and then they'd send us back. Well, one morning, we're in the barn, my squad, and as daylight comes out, I look out the window of the barn, and I see a cow. All skin and bones, skinny, but a cow. I said, hey, I see some steaks out there. I said, anybody, I'm a city boy, anybody know what to do? Suppose we get that cow. Well, Louis said, sure. I said, it's nothing like deer hunting, you cut up a deer, we cut up the cow. I said, okay. I had a 45. I said, listen, go kill that cow. I'll start a fire in the stove. So Louis goes out there. We don't hear anything. He comes back in. I said, what did you do? He said, I don't want to kill it. You kill it. Howard, go kill that cow. Howard goes out. He doesn't shoot. I came back. I said, you guys make me laugh. You're willing to kill men all day, but you won't kill a cow. Give me that damn gun. I went out there. When I put the gun up to that cow's head, it turned its head, looked at me with those big, brown, watery eyes, and I swear she didn't say moo. She sounded more like ma, like she was calling her mother. We ate K rations that day. Another time in March, we had broken out of Bastogne, and we were told to get off the trucks. You got to go through this woods. We think there's some Germans dug in there, and we got to root them out. And so we form a skirmish line, 10 yards apart, fix bayonets, and go through the woods. There were no Germans, but we noticed a smell. And the further we walked, the worse the smell got. When we broke out into a clearing, here was a 12-foot-high barbed wire fence enclosure, 2 big gates open. Don't forget, we were kids, 18, 19 years old. We were good combat troops by then, but we didn't have a lot of life experience. We were kids. And to see what we saw that day was the most unnerving thing in the whole war. In the middle of that compound, there was a big, deep hole and a bulldozer over here. And at the far end, a pile, not bodies like laid out, thrown like garbage, dumped, but all sizes, little big ones, bodies that they were going to push in the foxhole. This was one of the concentration camps, Dachau. And on the right side, the ovens were still smoking with bones in the oven. On the left side, there were cubby holes where some dead, some alive. And those in the middle of the compound couldn't walk. They were crawling on their elbows. And some of the guys just slid to the ground, started crying. Some of the guys went over and vomited. Some of us, you're all used to it now. You've heard the stories, you know about it. For us, this was brand new. We never thought that was true, that these things were happening. Whatever respect we had for the German army disappeared that day. We could not believe that one man could do this to another, and for no reason, only because they were Jews. They didn't do anything. They didn't revolt against the government. Just because they were Jews, they were rounded up and treated like this, worked to death, and then pushed into a hole in the ground. My outfit didn't take a prisoner from that time to the end of the war. We were just outraged and sickened by what we saw. And at the end of the war, when I got to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, there was a map on the wall. There was a map of the world, and it was in 3 colors: brown, red, and green. Brown was Germany, green was Italy, and red was Japan. They had that map outlined as to how they were going to divide up the world. Italy was to get Africa and South America. Germany was to get all of Europe, all of the Ukraine up to the Ural Mountains, and the rest of Europe down to the Mediterranean. All of Canada and the United States was to be German up to the Rockies. The Japanese wanted the West Coast, and all of Asia, all the way down to Australia. If anybody had any doubt about why we had to fight World War II, if anybody had an inkling that we not only had to fight, but we better win, because that's what was going to happen to the world. 3 dictators were going to divide the world up, and the rest of us would have been slaves, workers, or whatever they wanted, so on. And had I the presence of mind to take that damn map, I'd be a millionaire today. But at that moment, I just got hit in the face. Yeah, we lost a lot of people, but it's a damn good thing we took those 3 guys on, because America, which is the leader of the world, would have been a sub-nation banana republic under German domination. I'm finished, right? Okay. The rest of the war, I got wounded once, sent to a British hospital and so on, came back out okay, and they gave us 5 days recuperation leave, and my buddy and I went to Scotland, and you talk about an adventure, it's in a book, and we were going back to the war, so we didn't give a damn. Oh, Jesus, what we pulled. And there's a picture of us in the Scottish kilts there. We posed for pictures. And the story of the Scotsman and the Scotch. At any rate, I got to quit. At the end of the war, they sent us home. We came home as big heroes. And we marched down Fifth Avenue in a ticker tape parade, and then got discharged. There's a lot of detail in between, but that's all I got time for, right? I'm sorry. At any rate, I'm open to questions if there's anything you'd like to ask about.
What lessons would you like us to learn based on your experience in combat and war and the world we're in now? What would you like us to know?
Based on your experiences, what would you like us to know?
Okay,
about?
I got it now. Folks, listen, I do a lot of traveling now. I do a lot of speaking and so on and so on. And a lot of today's soldiers, those active duty people come up there, Vince, you guys, World War II, you're the foundation, we did this and that. They said, they'll the greatest generation, you did everything, but, there'll never be another group like you. I said, well, when you are faced with the same challenges that we were faced, don't worry. An American soldier will do his thing. And don't give me this business of there's no more like you. You're all like me. What were we? A kid out of high school who had to go do a job. Don't worry about it. Americans, especially you know, this whole thing, when you ask yourself this question, how did 12,000 Americans in Bastogne hold off 56,000 German troops with over 1,000 of their newest tanks, and we had 73. And yet, no matter what the hell they threw at us, we held. Why? Why? What's the story? The story is Americans and other freedom-loving people, it's what's in here that makes a soldier. Not how much training, who has air superiority, who has this and that. Battles are not necessarily won by who has the most men, the most equipment, air cover, artillery. It's what's in the heart of the individual soldier. The guy who says, I don't give a crap what you throw at me, you're not getting by me. When the tank comes down, you crouch down in your hole and wait till he passes over you, and then it's foolish, but you throw a grenade at him anyway just to satisfy yourself. You know the grenade's not going to do anything at the tank, but that's the way you feel about it. And I am absolutely convinced that any American soldier today, a man born in freedom, he's got freedom in his heart, and it's going to take an awful lot to take that out of him.